All right, 2020 is over. Thank goodness. But let's go back and let me give you some reviews on some movies that I watched in December of 2020. What's going on, guys? Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button down below if you enjoy content like this. And also, if this is your first time seeing me and seeing this face, make sure you consider hitting the subscribe button and being a part of this community. Anyway, I'm going to talk about a few films that I saw in December. December was a more eventful month for me, so I did watch a lot more in December, and there's going to be quite a few reviews. So I'm going to try to make them as brief as possible, and I hope you enjoy, and let me know your thoughts on every single movie that I talk about in this video. To start things off, let's talk about the new David Fincher movie, Mank. Mank stars Gary Oldman and Amanda Seyfried. This is about the story of Herman Mankiewicz, a man who is also responsible for the great film that is Citizen Kane, as he was a co-writer of the film. This movie chronologizes events of his life, as well as the inspirations that he received in order to write Citizen Kane. I went into this movie pretty excited because David Fincher was directing this movie, and it was going to be about the greatest movie ever portrayed on screen, which is Citizen Kane. And I'm not saying it's the greatest movie, but everyone else does. I was very, very excited because it's been 6 years since we've seen David Fincher do anything. And it was really cool that we're going to get something like this, a project that felt almost in a way, almost more of a passion project for 30s Hollywood and the Hollywood scene. And I gotta say, with what we get in this movie, I was left very disappointed. I don't think the movie's bad. I'm not gonna say it's bad. It's actually very artistic. It's very deliberate. I love that this movie was shot on old film, and it's also in black and white. It has that vintage 30s look of what Hollywood would be like, and also basically what movies in the movie industry was in the 30s. But I don't really like this movie because I feel like the problem that this movie has is it's a complex puzzle. It tries to have that complexity in it that Citizen Kane has. However, in Citizen Kane, you can start unraveling these puzzle pieces and figuring out where all of them fit. Whereas Mank, it's not like that at all. It's almost like scattered. There's so much time jumping in this movie. You're left confused. How does this set in to the character of Mank? How does this play in to what his inspiration is for the movie Citizen Kane that he's writing? There's so many different questions that this movie leaves you with, and I feel like this movie is just an editing mess. It doesn't necessarily have a cohesive edit in this movie to where you can understand what is happening with the characters. It always makes you feel like you're being just thrown in and in the middle of something, and it's like the movie's trying to have you just figure it out, and you don't have the complexity. You don't have the brain power in order to solve these puzzle pieces, and you also, quite frankly, don't really care. This movie's also very wordy. What I mean by that, this movie has so many words in the film that every single time someone talks in this movie, it feels like they are talking faster than a normal human being. And they don't break it down. You don't have any character who really kind of slows it down a bit. Every single character just feels like they're saying one thing, and they use way overcomplicated words to try to make you feel almost in a way inferior to them. So this movie was very, very frustrating from that standpoint. What I liked about it though, Gary Oldman's performance and Amanda Seyfried's performance, incredible. We are going to hear about them all award season, guaranteed. They're definitely going to be front runners, and I specifically think Amanda Seyfried could be the front runner for the Academy Award for Best Actress or Supporting Actress. It doesn't matter. Either if it's Best Actress or Best Supporting Actress, she is going to be a front runner in awards discussions. Gary Oldman, I think there's probably some bias because he won just a couple of years ago. He's definitely still going to get some consideration. Look, this movie really is an art project. It's artsy. I think the cinematography is phenomenal. I think certain things in this movie really work. The sound design's great. The set design's amazing. So there are those technical achievements that this movie really has that keeps this movie centered, keeps this movie grounded. I don't like the fact that this movie just feels like an editor's mess. And I really wish that the movie would slow things down a bit, not overcomplicate things, and quite frankly, not be so dull. I think this movie really kind of loses itself. The third act is fantastic, but the first and second acts, they just kind of drag on and the movie just feels inflated. That's how I feel about Mank, guys. I know some of you guys have been really looking forward to what my thoughts were, and I'm sorry to say that this movie did disappoint me, but it's still a really good movie. I think it's a great film. I just don't like it. That's kind of my personal opinion. It's a movie I'm happy I watched it, but I don't think I'd watch again. It is better than Roma, okay? Zoe, it is better than Roma in a lot of different ways, but I just don't think that this movie really worked for me. But let me know down below in the comment section what you guys thought of David Fincher's new film Mank down below in the comment section. Let's move on to the next movie. The next movie that I would like to talk about is Promising Young Woman. This movie was directed by Emerald Fennell, and it stars Carey Mulligan as a young woman haunted by a past tragedy in her life. So she decides to get revenge on the unlucky men who cross her path and try to take advantage of her. This is a movie that I saw trailers for months ago for the first time, and I thought that this movie looked really good. I've always been very curious about Carey Mulligan's work. I like her in certain things. I also don't like her in certain things, but I loved her in movies like Inside Llewyn Davis or even like The Great Gatsby, where she can really kind of bring into these roles something very specific and glued in. And this movie is really a starring vehicle for her in such a good way because she is phenomenal in this film. Let me get to the things that I loved about this movie. I do think that this is one of the best movies of 2020 that I've seen so far, and I'm going to give you some reasons into why that is. Number one, Carey Mulligan's performance, like I said, jaw-dropping. She is phenomenal in this role, in this film, playing this character who at times has to act very flat, very narrow, and not show any emotional range. And in other times, she has to be able to have that emotion that she's reining in and keeping herself in check, and she's able to do it eloquently and very, very balanced. This is a character that's very conceptualized, not necessarily different or out there, but it's a character that almost feels too natural, too normal to our naked eye. And what I mean by that is you see people like this in real life, in society, the way that they view the world, and especially due to a tragic event that happens, basically permits them from moving on and moving further in life. And Carey Mulligan does it in strides. She is so good in this film. I applaud her for what she's able to do with this character and be able to basically keep you invested in this film, because the thing about this movie is that this movie has a lot of different types of genres to it. Number one, it does feel like a thriller at times, but the main thing about this movie is that this movie is really a dark comedy. It's almost a satire on what is happening in the world today and the way that women are objectified and essentially the way that they are almost thrown away. Bravo to the filmmakers and Carey Mulligan and everybody who is able to really kind of narrow this movie in and make that message very clear, but yet have a very constructed and well thought out narrative that supports that message and what this movie is really going for. And this movie has a really bold statement, and I understand the statement, and I believe in it. I get what they're trying to do with this film, what the message is of this movie, and I thought that that was very clear in what they were able to do and what they were able to show on screen. Another thing that I really loved about this movie is that this movie has a very dark sense of humor to it. I found myself to actually really find some scenes hilarious when they needed to be hilarious. It's not a movie that's trying to be in your face with comedy. It's a movie that really kind of uses those moments, those small moments, to have jokes here and there sprinkled throughout to kind of relieve some of that tension. I felt very tense throughout the entire experience of this movie because I didn't know where this movie was going. It's very unpredictable. Things happen. There's a lot of twists and turns, and a lot of these twists I really enjoyed. And I especially loved the final 15 minutes of this movie. I thought the last act was really, really well done. It gets a little kind of drawn out in the second act of this film, but I thought the third act really kind of put everything together and did it in such a nice and great way. Let me talk about some things that I don't like. I don't like the second act as much because I feel like it's a little bit messy. There's kind of some convoluted thoughts that I have to that second act where the character almost in a sense is trying to get past this event and move forward. And I don't want to spoil anything, but then they get held back because of some new revelations to that event that happen. And I kind of found myself to not really be interested in that aspect. And basically having the life of this person derailed, I thought was kind of a little annoying to me because I really started to really like what this character was doing in the second act that made the movie so unpredictable and go in a different route than I thought it was going to. Another thing I didn't really like about this movie is that I did not like how the protagonist, Carey Mulligan's character, was so forceful about the thing that happened and trying to basically right those wrongs. It felt like it was too persistent with some type of perspective. I don't know if that makes sense, but I like when characters are persistent but not too persistent. And that's what I felt like with this character, where it almost came off as fake, where the character necessarily doesn't really care as much about the event as the movie would like to tell you that the character feels about that event. Anyway, though, other than that, guys, I really love this movie. Bo Burnham was great in this movie. I love Bo Burnham. The comedy with him, especially there's one scene in a pharmacy that I actually really loved. And there's some really nice moments in this movie. And again, very unpredictable ending. The movie kind of goes all over the place at times. But that third act I really enjoyed, especially the last 15 minutes, because I had no idea what was going to happen. And I felt like the ending was very well earned. Anyway, guys, those are my thoughts on Promising Young Woman. What did you guys think of this movie? Let me know down below in the comment section of this video. Let's move on to the next movie. The next movie that I want to talk about is one of the most anticipated films of the year for me, and that is Soul. This is the new Pixar film that was directed by one of my favorite filmmakers, honestly, Pete Docter. This guy is phenomenal. Anytime that this guy's brought in to do a Pixar project, and now he's the head of Pixar, you know that this movie is going to be special. This movie centers around Joe Gardner, a teacher, but someone who has wanted and has the dream of becoming a professional jazz player. He gets the gig of a lifetime, and after a very successful audition to that gig, he ends up falling and being transported into the youth seminar, which is basically a place where souls that haven't been born yet are able to kind of experience who they actually are. Joe decides that he wants to go back to Earth, and he enlists the help of the soul in training, Soul 22, that has been there forever and does not want to have a life on Earth. They try to get Joe back into his body and back on Earth, so that way he may be able to live out his dreams and his passions. This movie is one that I've been waiting for a long time, and I can finally say that I freaking love this movie. That's right, I love this movie. This movie is so good. It's as good as I was hoping it was going to be. It lived up to the hype for me, and I'm going to explain some reasons as to why I think that this movie is not only a great film, but potentially the best film of 2020. The first reason why I really love Soul is that this movie does not necessarily have that type of template that Pixar usually has. What I mean by that is that this movie is not nearly as emotional as I thought it was going to be. It's more heartwarming and endearing, and I love that. This movie not only has that, but it's visually beautiful to look at. The storytelling, the artistry, everything is on display. It shows why Pixar has such a very valuable and respected brand that has been doing this for decades now. This is a brand that truly understands its audience. It truly understands what people want in films. They want something that not only is great storytelling, but it also appeals to us emotionally and as people. And this movie answers that question of what do you want to do with your life as you basically move forward and progress in your life. Not everything that you are passionate about, or not everything that potentially you've been working so hard in your life for, is what's going to make life as valuable for you. Life is about the small details, the little intricate things, and this movie really explores that motif, and it does it in strides. We've seen this in movies before, but nothing like this, where this movie really kind of tells us and shows us how it is that we can really value our lives and value what we need to do moving forward. And what an appropriate time for this movie to come out with everything that we know about 2020, this horrible year, and really the sad year that 2020 has been for a lot of people, including myself, giving us a different perspective as we move forward and hopefully continue to progress in this life and look forward to a better future. I just love what Pete Docter was able to do with this movie. This movie felt so personal. And I love these movies that are personal reflections of our lives, of ourselves. And Pixar does it time and time again. And this is a movie that I felt like had so much going for it, had so much hype, but it succeeded because it was able to do all of the small things in the right way. I really love this movie. I can't even think of anything that I don't like about it. I think it's easily one of Pixar's best films of all time. It's definitely in my top 10 for sure. It's so far the best movie of 2020 that really inspires me. It really makes me want to go out and live life in a better way, to basically enjoy the small details of life, because we have one life on this earth and we need to live that life to the fullest. Not only that, but be kind to people, reach out to people, help those in need, and really just try to live out our passions and our best selves. What a movie, what a revelation. And I'm just so grateful that we were able to get this movie this year, and this is definitely what we needed during the holiday season as we reflect on 2020, the year that's been, and as we move forward to 2021, the year that hopefully has a lot more promise and hopefully is a lot better. What did you think of Soul? Let me know down below in the comment section of this video. I was very impressed by this movie, and I'm much looking forward to watching it again. By the way, I will have a Pixar ranking at some point in time. My wife and I are working on watching all the Pixar movies, and it's fun being able to watch these movies with my wife. And it's been a while since I've been touched by a film like this. 2020 has just been a really bad year for films, but finally we got one that I feel very confident in as being potentially the best film of 2020. The last movie that I want to talk about in this hectic month and crazy month of December is Wonder Woman 84. This is the sequel to the 2017 hit Wonder Woman, which I absolutely loved, and I know a lot of other people really loved it. This movie centers around our character, our hero, Diana Prince, aka Wonder Woman, as she is in the 1980s. And some weird occurrences start to happen with this rock as dreams start to become reality and wishes are granted. And it's up to Wonder Woman and Chris Pine, who returns as Steve Trevor, to put an end to the chaos and madness that is happening within the world in the 1980s. This has been a very divisive movie, and I watched it on Christmas Day. I also watched it yesterday. To me, I had to watch it twice because I had to let everything sink in. I had to really kind of understand how I felt about this movie. And the first time I watched it, I gave it a 7 out of 10. The second time, it's a 6 out of 10 for me. This movie has a lot to dislike about it, but it also has some things that I actually quite enjoy from this movie, and I'm just gonna kind of break it down as best as I can. So let me start off with the positives, because I think there's not as many positives for me about this movie as there are negatives. Some of the positive things: Pedro Pascal steals the show as Max Lord. I love this character. I love him in the role. I love what he does with this character, and I really like the arc, actually, the redemption at the end of this movie. Although people will look at it and they're like, well, there's no consequences to his actions. I get it, but at the same time, if you take it at face value, it's really, really nice to see a character like this, who's not really a despicable human being. It's just he does despicable things because he's always kind of been pushed down in life. I also have been very vocal about Gal Gadot and her acting prowess. I've never really felt like she was a good actor. It always felt like she was getting there, but she was always taking steps back. This is the best acting that she has done in anything that I've seen. I think this is her best role to date, and she's really kind of crafting this Diana Prince character, this Wonder Woman, in such a way that we understand the world around her, what she's thinking. Inflections are so much better in this movie than in other movies, and her emotional range has gotten a lot better. So I'll give her props for that. She was really good in this movie. But there's so many things that I don't like about this movie. Those are the two things that I point out to what I like, and I also love the score by Hans Zimmer, I should also say that. But I want to talk about the things I don't like. This movie, number one, is very cheesy. Number two, this movie doesn't warrant any reason for why it takes place in the 80s, just although that the setting just wants to take place in the 80s. And my biggest problem with this movie is that this movie is boring. The second act of this film is a drag. It drags on, it's dull, it's lifeless. And yeah, there's some fun moments of Chris Pine interacting with the world in the 80s. Steve Trevor, this character who, is back. I'm not going to talk about reasons for why he's back. I'm not going to get into a spoiler discussion of this movie because I just don't want to at this point in time. Maybe in the future, maybe we'll do a live stream or something talking about spoilers. It might even be too late now to talk about spoilers anyway, but him coming back into the fold, the way that he comes back is really stupid and it makes zero sense, but also his interactions with the world are fun, but they just aren't fun enough. This movie loses its theme. Everything that I was excited for about this movie made me not excited anymore to get to the end of this movie, but also excited at the same time because I wanted it to be over with, because this movie really drags on in the middle act and it really doesn't find that stride. Also, Another thing that I really hate is how they bring about something that is lore and canon to the Wonder Woman story in the comics is probably the worst writing I've ever seen. The screenplay for this movie is atrocious. It's horrendous. Also, and I saw this in Chris Stuckman's review, and I have to agree, I'm not going to really mention it as much, but there are so many superhero tropes in this movie that they try to go for to kind of bring back that nostalgia of superhero films in the 80s, but those movies work a lot better. Even some of the bad ones like Batman Forever, things like that. I mean, to this extent, this is a movie that really doesn't understand what it wants to be at times, and it's supposed to be a movie that's really kind of the platform for the character of Wonder Woman, but I didn't really feel that way because they don't really make her very interesting in this movie because there's not really a lot to go about. It's just a lot of characters talking, a lot of setup, and that's pretty much it, with a very anticlimactic third act that I just kind of didn't really care about. And the action sequences are dull, and they're all filled with CGI. There's so much CGI in this movie, especially in the third act and the final confrontation between Wonder Woman and Cheetah, and it's not good. It's just really not good. And I was really looking forward to this movie. I love the 2017 Wonder Woman film. It's my second favorite DCU movie, and I was really let down by this movie. I really don't think it's great. It's one that I'll watch again in the future, I know it, but it's not one that I want to revisit often like the 2017 Wonder Woman film that is just really, really great. This movie doesn't have the same heart, nor does it have the same spirit as its predecessor, and it's very sad that this movie just wasn't as good as what I was hoping, or I think what everyone else was hoping for, especially in a year like this where we've had no superhero movie content. This is really just a letdown. But anyway, guys, what are your thoughts on Wonder Woman 84? Let me know down below in the comment section of this video. Would you be interested in me talking spoilers about this movie in the future? Anyway, that's gonna do it though. That's it for the month of December. What a way to close out the year 2020. It's been a crazy year for new releases. Hopefully 2021 is a lot better and we get a lot of these movies, which I think we will. Thank you guys so much for the year 2020. I will have some other videos out very soon over the next coming days, with one of the videos being my plans for 2021 and the future of this channel for next year, as well as a live stream to celebrate 500 subscribers. Thank you all so much for that. Some of my friends, including Nathan Hale Movies, Trevor from Film Geeks, and our friend Jackson Kittrell, who doesn't have a YouTube channel yet, but potentially there'll be some news on that, as well as look forward to my top 10 best movies of the year, top 10 worst movies of the year video, and top 10 most disappointing films of the year. And you could probably make a bet that Wonder Woman 84 is going to make its way on that list. Those videos will come out next week. I'm not too worried about trying to get them out like at the end of the month. It's just there's some movies I still want to catch up on before I officially make that list, but right now we're sitting at around 50 movies that I've watched in 2020, so a lot less than last year, but that's just how this year has been. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Consider subscribing to the channel for more content just like this. And I will be posting every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday moving forward. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.